I always imagined my first big investigation would be in a bustling city newsroom, not my grandmother's quiet village. But life has a way of wrecking your plans. 2 weeks ago, my fiancé Ryan left me for another woman, and as if that wasn't enough, he drained my savings account. The money I'd been setting aside for months, meant for a long-awaited seaside vacation, was gone in an instant. I stared at the empty balance on my phone screen for hours, my hands numb, my chest hollow. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. I'd been so careful, so trusting. And now? No fiancé, no money, no trip. My friends urged me to stay in the city, to drown my sorrows in wine and bad TV. But the apartment felt suffocating, like every corner reminded me of him. I needed to get out. That's how I ended up on the rickety bus heading to my grandmother's village, a place I hadn't visited in years. My grandmother, sweet old Helen, was thrilled when I called. "Come, Emma," she said warmly. "It will do you good to breathe clean air. We'll make jam, like we used to." When I arrived, the countryside was just as I remembered: golden fields, crooked fences, chickens pecking at dirt roads. But there was something different this time. The village felt dense. Curtains twitched as I walked past. People averted their eyes. Even my grandmother's hug was tight, almost desperate. That night, over steaming bowls of borscht, I asked her why everyone seemed on edge. She hesitated, her spoon hovering midair. "It's nothing you should worry about, dear. Just strange times." But as the evening darkened, I overheard 2 neighbors whispering outside the window. "Another one's gone," one murmured. "Disappeared, just like the others," the other replied. My pulse quickened. When I pressed my grandmother for answers, she only sighed. People have been vanishing. Old Mikhail, the baker's boy, even a little girl last month. I froze. Vanishing? She nodded gravely. And not just that. Houses burned down last week. An old woman was attacked in her own home. No one knows who's behind it. That night, lying in my childhood bed, I couldn't sleep. I heard a scream in the distance, sharp, cut short, and then the low wail of a dog. My grandmother didn't stir. I stared at the ceiling, my journalist's instincts roaring awake. The city editor had once told me, "A good story finds you when you least expect it." Maybe this was it. The next morning, I walked through the village, noting boarded-up windows, locked gates, and anxious glances. Children no longer played outside. A flyer for a missing boy flapped against a lamppost, his smiling face faded from rain. I pulled out my notebook. My heartbreak still ached, raw and fresh, but something else was stirring now: focus. If there was a story here, missing people, attacks, fear strangling a village, I was going to find it. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find myself again in the process. The morning after my restless night, I stepped outside into the crisp air, my notebook tucked under my arm. The village was exactly as I remembered: stone cottages leaning against each other like gossiping old women, a small square with a fountain that hadn't worked in years, and the faint smell of wood smoke clinging to the air. Yet now, there was an edge to it all. Doors slammed shut when I passed. A man herding goats glanced over his shoulder nervously before quickening his pace. Even the stray cat seemed skittish, darting under fences at the sound of my footsteps. I stopped by the general store to buy tea and bread. Inside, the shelves were sparse, and the shopkeeper, a heavy-set woman named Janet, watched me with wary eyes. "You're Helen's granddaughter, aren't you?" she asked as she rang up my items. I nodded. "Yes. Emma. It's been a while since I visited." Janet leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Then you don't know what's been happening." I hesitated. "I heard about disappearances." Her eyes darted toward the window. "It's not safe to talk. Not here." She shoved my change into my hand and whispered, "Be careful. I stepped outside, unsettled. The unease in the village wasn't imagined, it was real, heavy enough to taste in the air. Later, while walking past the old mill, I spotted two elderly men sitting on a bench, speaking in low voices. I lingered nearby, pretending to admire the scenery. 3 gone in the last month, one said. And the fires? Second one this week. Same pattern. Police do nothing, the first man spat on the ground. Too busy counting their bribes. Bribes. My pen scratched furiously across my notebook. That afternoon, I visited my grandmother's neighbor, Marissa, who used to give me candies as a child. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she poured tea. Marissa, I began carefully, I want to understand what's happening. Maybe I can help. She shook her head, her eyes glistening. Help? Child, even the police are afraid. Or worse, they're part of it. Before I could press further, a knock rattled her door. We both froze. She peeked through the curtains, then exhaled in relief. Just the postman. Even so, she didn't say another word. That night, smoke curled up from across the valley, a house burning. The orange glow lit the dark sky like a wound. I ran outside, heart pounding, and saw silhouettes of villagers rushing with buckets. I wanted to join them, but my grandmother grabbed my wrist. Stay here, she pleaded. From our porch, I watched as flames devoured the roof. The screams of panic and the crackle of fire filled the night. This wasn't gossip. It was real. I pressed my hand against the notebook in my pocket. I had my first lead. By morning, the burned house was nothing more than blackened beams and smoldering ash. The smell of char clung to the air like a warning. I joined the small crowd gathered around the ruins, faces pale, eyes wide with fear. Whose house was it? I asked a woman clutching her shawl tightly. Old Mikhail's, she whispered, not looking at me. He refused to sell his land. Sell it to who? I pressed. Her lips thinned, and she quickly walked away. I turned to a group of men standing near the fence. Does anyone know how it started? They exchanged wary glances, then one muttered, accident, and the others nodded silently, too quickly. I recognized the rehearsed answer. The crowd fell silent as a police car pulled up, its siren off but its presence commanding. Out stepped Officer Daniel, the only policeman in the village. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore his uniform like armor. All right, everyone, go home, he barked. Nothing to see here. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Officer, shouldn't there be an investigation? This is arson. He turned his sharp gaze on me. And you are? Emma Carter. Journalist. Something flickered in his eyes, amusement, maybe disdain. A journalist? From the city? He chuckled darkly. This is village business. Go write about traffic jams or celebrities instead. His dismissiveness stoked my anger. People are disappearing. Homes are burning down. You can't seriously expect everyone to believe it's coincidence. He stepped closer, his boots crunching the gravel. I expect you to stop asking questions you don't understand. His voice lowered, almost a growl. This isn't your concern. I held his stare, but my palms were sweating. He smirked, turned back to his car, and drove off, leaving behind nothing but silence and the stench of smoke. I noticed something strange as he left, his car was new. Too new. I remembered the dusty Lada he used to drive, now replaced with a sleek black sedan that didn't belong in a poor village like ours. Later that afternoon, I visited Janet again at the store. When I mentioned Daniel's car, she leaned in so close I could smell the tobacco on her breath. He didn't buy that on a policeman's salary, she whispered. Everyone knows it. Who's paying him? I asked. She glanced around before muttering, "Developers. They want to buy the land cheap. Scare people into selling." A chill ran down my spine. And the disappearances? Her eyes darted nervously to the door. "Don't ask me that. Just, leave it alone." But I couldn't. That evening, I walked through the square, taking notes. Flyers of missing villagers clung to the notice board, faces young and old alike. I traced my fingers over the photo of a boy, no older than 10, his smile wide and innocent. His name was Ethan. I swallowed hard. Somewhere in this terrified, silent village, someone knew what happened to him. And I was going to find out, even if it killed me. The news hit the village like a thunderclap. Ethan, the boy from the missing flyer, had vanished 3 days ago. His mother, pale and trembling, had been seen running door to door, begging anyone for help. No one answered. No one ever did anymore. I found her sitting on her porch that afternoon, her hands clutching a worn sweater that must have belonged to him. Her eyes were swollen, her voice hoarse from crying. "Mrs. Thompson?" I said softly, approaching her. She looked up at me, hesitant but desperate. "You're Helen's granddaughter," she said weakly. "Yes. I'm a journalist," I replied, crouching down so we were eye level. "I want to help find Ethan." Her lips trembled. "The police won't search. They came, asked 2 questions, then left. Said he probably ran away. He's 10. He wouldn't run away." My chest tightened. "Did he have any problems? Anyone bothering him?" She shook her head furiously. "He's a sweet boy. He helps me feed the chickens. He's afraid of the dark, he wouldn't even go outside alone at night." Her raw fear clawed at me. I asked for permission to look around his room, and she nodded. Inside, I found the usual mess of a child, scattered toys, books, clothes. But near the window, I noticed muddy footprints, small, but not his size. Someone else had been here. I photographed everything. When I stepped outside again, I saw Officer Daniel standing by his car, arms crossed, watching me. "Journalist," he said flatly. "Officer," I shot back. "Leave this alone," he warned, his tone sharp. "The boy probably went to stay with relatives. Kids do that." I clenched my jaw. "His mother says otherwise." "She's emotional," he said with a smirk. "You city types don't understand how things work here. Sometimes people leave. Sometimes accidents happen. Best not to stir things up." And with that, he drove away again, the hum of his expensive engine fading into the distance. That night, I sat at my grandmother's kitchen table, poring over my notes by candlelight. Names. Dates. Disappearances. Burned homes. Every pattern pointed to one thing: those who refused to sell their land were vanishing or being terrorized. My grandmother entered quietly, her face lined with worry. "Emma," she whispered, "you're playing with fire. Please, stop." I met her gaze. "If I don't, who will? That boy, he's still out there. I can feel it." She sighed, clutching her shawl tighter. "You have your mother's stubbornness." I almost smiled. Good. It might save a life. Before bed, I pinned Ethan's photo above my notebook. His smile stared back at me, a silent reminder of why I couldn't walk away. Tomorrow, I would start digging deeper. The next morning, I walked to the village hall, a squat concrete building from the Soviet era, its walls stained with decades of neglect. Inside, it smelled faintly of dust and mildew. The clerk, a thin man with round glasses, barely glanced up when I approached his desk. "I'm here to review property records," I said, flashing my press card. He sighed. "Journalists," he flipped through a drawer lazily. "What for?" I'm writing about rural development, I lied smoothly. I want to see who's been selling land lately. That got his attention. He hesitated, glanced at my card again, then slid over a stack of thick ledgers. For hours, I sifted through brittle pages, tracing names and deeds. It didn't take long to spot the pattern. One by one, villagers had sold their properties over the past year, all to the same buyer, a shell company named Sarabrianka Holdings. The names of those who hadn't sold yet leapt off the page: Mikhail, the man whose house had burned. Marissa, my grandmother's neighbor. And yes, Ethan's family. My pulse quickened. I jotted it all down, my notes now forming a clear picture. Someone wanted this land badly enough to use fear as leverage. When I returned the books, the clerk lowered his voice. Be careful asking about Sarabrianka. People who do, don't stay long. Outside, I found Marissa tending her garden, her hands shaking slightly as she watered wilted flowers. I approached, showing her my notes. Your name is here, I said quietly. You didn't sell. She glanced around nervously. Because it's my home. My parents built this house. But they won't leave me alone. I get letters, threats. Rocks thrown at my windows. From who? I pressed. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Men in black cars. And Daniel does nothing. He just looks away. As if on cue, a sleek black SUV rolled slowly down the dirt road, its tinted windows reflecting the pale sunlight. It didn't stop. Didn't need to. Marissa flinched, clutching her shawl tighter. That night, I pored over my findings, connecting every thread. Sarabrianka Holdings was clearly tied to the violence. And Daniel's shiny new car? Likely bought with their money. I emailed scanned copies of the property records to myself, then called a contact from my old newsroom days, Jason, an editor who owed me a favor. Jason, I whispered, glancing over my shoulder. I think I've stumbled onto something big. A developer buying up land. Threats. Fires. Missing people. He sighed. Emma, you've been out there 2 days. Don't go playing hero. Call the regional police. I can't, I said bitterly. What if they're in on it too? He went quiet. Fine. Send me everything. If it's solid, I'll run it. I hung up, heart pounding. That night, I dreamed of Ethan's face, smiling, then vanishing into black smoke. Tomorrow, I vowed, I'd start watching Daniel. The next morning, I parked myself on a bench near the police station, pretending to read a magazine while keeping my eyes locked on Officer Daniel's shiny black sedan. He strolled out of the building around noon, glancing around casually before sliding into the driver's seat. I waited until he turned the corner before hopping into my grandmother's rusty old Lada and following at a distance. The car's engine coughed like it was dying, but it managed to keep up as he drove out of the village and onto a narrow country road. After 20 minutes, he pulled up to a small roadside cafe, the kind truckers frequented. From my spot in the Lada, I watched him step out and greet a man in a tailored gray suit. The contrast between them was striking. Daniel, rough and weathered, shaking hands with a slick city man who practically screamed money. I grabbed my camera and zoomed in. The suited man handed Daniel a slim black briefcase. Daniel opened it briefly, just enough for me to see the stacks of cash inside, then shut it quickly and gave a satisfied nod. My hands trembled as I snapped photo after photo. This was it. Proof. They spoke for several minutes, leaning in close. I couldn't hear them from my car, but I didn't need to. Their expressions told me enough. Daniel was the enforcer. The man in the suit was the buyer. Together, they were squeezing the village dry. When Daniel returned to his car, I sank lower in my seat, praying he wouldn't notice me. As they drove off in separate directions, I exhaled shakily. I sped home and uploaded the photos immediately, backing them up in multiple files. My hands were still shaking as I typed notes. Bribe confirmed. Developer identified? That night, I stayed up late combing through online business registries. After hours of searching, I found him, Richard Graves, CEO of Sarabrianka Holdings. Formerly a mid-level real estate developer in the city, now running rural, resort projects. I dug deeper. One resort in another village. 2 years ago, locals reported mysterious fires and forced sales. Sound familiar? Just as I was about to shut my laptop, I heard it, a creak downstairs. I froze. Slowly, I stood, heart hammering. The floorboards groaned faintly. Someone was in the house. I grabbed my phone and crept toward the kitchen, where moonlight spilled across the floor. The back door was ajar, swaying slightly. I swallowed hard and flicked on the light. Papers from my bag were scattered across the table. My notebook lay open. On top of it sat a folded note in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. Stop digging. Or you're next. My blood ran cold. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps, every shadow like someone waiting to strike. By dawn, my decision was made. I wasn't running. Whoever left that note underestimated me. I tucked it into my notebook and headed straight for the village square. People were gathering near the Ryanette stalls, murmuring as they exchanged eggs, bread, and whispered fears. Officer Daniel stood near his car, chatting casually with a group of farmers. My heart thudded as I marched toward him. Officer Daniel. I called loudly. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. He looked over, annoyed. Journalist. What now? I held up my phone, the photos of his bribe glowing on the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Care to explain why a police officer needs briefcases full of cash from Richard Graves? His smirk faltered. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped, but the crowd was already pressing closer, whispering. Oh, I do, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Graves wants this land. He pays you to look the other way while houses burn and people vanish. Am I wrong? Daniel's jaw clenched. You're meddling in things you don't understand. Go back to the city before you get hurt. Is that a threat? I asked, raising my voice so everyone could hear. Because threats seem to be your specialty, don't they? Like the note you left in my house last night? A stunned silence fell. Marissa, standing near the bakery stall, gasped. He broke into your house. Daniel's face flushed red. Enough, he barked. Everyone disperse. But no one moved. Farmers, shopkeepers, even old women clutching baskets, they stayed rooted, glaring at him. Someone muttered, we knew it. Another said, he's been driving that fancy car, now we see why. I took a step closer. Tell me, Daniel, was it worth it? Selling out your neighbors for a shiny apartment in the city? A few people gasped. Whispers shot through the crowd, an apartment? He's moving to the city. Daniel's fists clenched. He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist roughly. Enough of this circus. Let her go. Marissa shouted. 2 men stepped between us, broad-shouldered farmers with weathered faces. Back off, Daniel, one growled. He glared at them but released me, his chest heaving. You're making a mistake, he spat before storming off to his car. Tires screeched as he sped away. The crowd erupted in chatter. Some thanked me quietly, others looked terrified. Emma, Marissa whispered urgently, gripping my arm. You've made him desperate. He won't stop now. I don't care, I said, though my voice wavered. I'm not stopping either. That night, I double-locked the doors and pushed a chair against them. My grandmother begged me to leave, her voice trembling. But I stared at Ethan's photo pinned to my wall and shook my head. If Daniel was desperate, it meant I was close to the truth. By morning, the village was buzzing. Some hailed me as brave, others whispered I'd doomed us all. I didn't care. I was done letting fear control this place. I spent the day digging deeper into graves. His company, Sarabrianka Holdings, had filed permits for a luxury eco-resort to be built right where the village stood. The blueprints I uncovered online included hotels, a golf course, even a private airstrip. Our homes, our entire community, were just blank spaces labeled to be cleared. That evening, Marissa knocked on my door, her face pale. "Emma," she whispered, "you need to see this." She led me to her barn and pulled out an envelope hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Inside were letters, threatening ones, slipped under her door at night. Scrawled in bold black ink. "Sell now. Next time it won't be just a fire." At the bottom of one letter was a crude map with red XS. I froze. It rhymed every recent fire, every missing person's home, and one final X on the far edge of the forest, near the old abandoned storage depot. "What's there?" I asked. "Nothing," Marissa said, trembling. "It's been empty since Soviet times." Or so everyone thought. I stared at Ethan's name scrawled on my notes. A chilling certainty gripped me, that's where they had him. That night, I packed a flashlight, camera, and recorder. Marissa insisted on coming, as did a young farmer named Caleb who'd lost his uncle in the fires. We waited until dark, then slipped through the woods, our footsteps muffled by wet leaves. The moon was thin and sickly, barely lighting the path. My heart pounded with every twig that snapped beneath us. When we reached the depot, I crouched low, peering through the broken fence. A single light glowed inside the crumbling building. Shadows moved within. "Stay here," I whispered, inching closer. I pressed my ear to a side window. Voices. "Keep the boy quiet until tomorrow. The papers will be signed after the next fire." My breath caught. They did have Ethan. I motioned for Marissa and Caleb. We crept to the back door, it was rusted, hanging off its hinges. Inside, crates were stacked high, and in one corner, a small locked room. From inside came a muffled whimper. "Ethan?" I whispered. A soft cry answered. I forced the door open with a metal rod while Caleb kept watch. The boy launched into my arms, trembling. His face was pale, streaked with dirt, but he was alive. "Quiet," I urged, scooping him up. "We're getting you out." Suddenly, footsteps. Loud, heavy, approaching fast. "Run!" Caleb hissed. We bolted out the back, Ethan clinging to me. Behind us, angry shouts erupted, followed by the thud of boots. A flashlight beam cut through the trees. We plunged into the forest, branches whipping our faces, lungs burning. Behind us, men cursed and crashed through the underbrush. "Faster!" Marissa gasped, grabbing my arm. We didn't stop until we burst out into the village square, breathless and wild-eyed. Lights flicked on in houses. Doors opened. People gathered. And there, in the center, I held Ethan high for all to see. "He's alive!" I shouted. Gasps. Cries. Then cheers. The crowd surged forward, embracing us, their fear cracking into hope. But I knew it wasn't over. Graves and Daniel would come for us. And this time, I'd be ready. By dawn, the entire village knew what had happened. People crowded around my grandmother's yard where Ethan clung to his mother, sobbing into her chest. Fear was shifting into anger now. The whispers that once silenced the streets had turned into open shouts. They took our children. They burned our homes. And the police did nothing. For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw the villagers united, not in fear, but in fury. I uploaded every photo, recording, and document I had to Jason, my editor contact. "This is enough to blow it open," I told him, my voice sharp. "Print it, Jason. Today." He hesitated. "Emma, this could put you in real danger. Graves isn't just some greedy developer, he's connected. If I run this." "Run it," I cut him off. "We already have a kidnapped child, multiple arsons, police corruption. If we wait, someone else will disappear." There was a pause. Then, "Fine. Check the site in an hour." When the article went live, it hit harder than I could have imagined. Photos of Daniel's bribe. The map of threats. Quotes from Marissa and Ethan's mother. Headline: Luxury resort plans tied to arson, disappearances in remote village. Within 2 hours, it was trending. But victory came at a price. As villagers huddled together in the square, a black SUV roared into town, tires spitting gravel. Graves himself stepped out, flanked by 2 men in leather jackets. His slick smile was like oil on water. "Well," he drawled, glancing around, "it seems someone's been telling stories." His gaze locked on me. Daniel arrived moments later, still in uniform but visibly shaken, sweat beading his forehead. "Arrest her," he barked at no one, though no one moved. "On what charge?" I demanded, stepping forward. "Exposing you?" Graves smirked, motioning to his men. "Take her." Before they could move, Caleb and 2 other farmers blocked their path, wielding pitchforks and shovels like weapons. More villagers poured in, forming a human wall. "You're not touching her," Caleb growled. Graves' smirk faltered. "You idiots think you can stop me? I own this land. I own your police." "No," I said, raising my phone so he could see the live-streaming camera pointed at him. "Not anymore. The whole country is watching." For the first time, his confident mask cracked. In the distance, the sound of sirens split the air. Blue lights flashed on the horizon, regional police, responding to the public outcry from the article. Daniel paled. "Richard." Graves turned on him, furious. "You useless fool." The police cars screeched to a halt, officers flooding out with guns drawn. "Hands where we can see them." It was chaos, yelling, shouting, Graves' men trying to flee but being tackled by furious villagers. Daniel, trembling, raised his hands as 2 officers slapped cuffs on him. As Graves was shoved into a patrol car, he snarled at me. "You think this changes anything? People like me always come back." I met his glare calmly. "Not if we keep the lights on you." The sirens faded as they drove him away. For the first time since I arrived, the village felt safe. Ethan ran up and hugged me, his small arms squeezing tight. "Thank you," he whispered. And in that moment, I knew it had all been worth it. The days after Graves' arrest felt surreal. Regional police swarmed the village, gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and sealing off the old depot where Ethan had been held. Journalists arrived in droves, their vans lining the dusty roads. For the first time in months, villagers walked outside without fear, their doors left open, their shoulders unburdened. I watched it all from my grandmother's porch, exhausted but triumphant. My article had exploded far beyond what I imagined, picked up by national outlets, then international ones. Headlines hailed me as the journalist who took down a corrupt developer. My inbox overflowed with offers from newspapers and investigative programs. Jason called, his voice bursting with pride. "Emma, you've got networks begging for interviews. Everyone wants you. You've just made your career." But more than the recognition, what struck me most was the way the village transformed. Neighbors once too scared to speak now gathered in the square each evening, sharing food and laughter. Children played in the streets again. Even the fountain, long broken, was scrubbed clean and decorated with fresh flowers. Marissa came by one afternoon, handing me a jar of homemade jam. "We thought you'd only bring trouble," she admitted, smiling sheepishly. "But you brought us hope." Ethan clung to my waist, his small voice muffled against my coat. "Are you leaving?" I knelt, brushing his hair back. "Not yet, little one. But I'll come back." His mother hugged me fiercely, tears in her eyes. "You saved him. I can never repay that." I shook my head. "Just keep him safe. That's enough." The regional prosecutor announced a formal investigation into Graves and Daniel's ties, promising justice for every burned home and missing villager. It would take time, but the worst was over. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold over the fields, I sat on the porch with my grandmother. She squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening. "Your mother would be proud," she said softly. I smiled faintly. I think I finally found my story. When I returned to the city a week later, it felt different. My apartment no longer suffocated me. The pain from Ryan's betrayal had dulled, replaced by a strange sense of strength. He'd stolen my savings, yes, but in some twisted way, he'd pushed me exactly where I needed to go. I poured myself into writing a longer feature, a full exposé with every detail, every name, every photo. It ran on the front page of the National Chronicle under the headline, "Fear, Fire, and Bribery, How One Journalist Exposed a Village Under Siege." Messages flooded in from strangers, praise, gratitude, even tips about other corrupt schemes. For the first time, I felt what I'd dreamed of as a child, not just writing stories, but changing things. Weeks later, as I prepared for my first TV interview, I glanced at Ethan's photo pinned above my desk. His smile was brighter now in my memory, no longer shadowed by fear. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. Heartbreak had sent me running. But courage, and a village in need, had given me purpose. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like